Hey folks, it is past 6:30 right now, and that's supposed to be our start time 6:30, but we are missing um Simon Simon because he is currently in another interview, and he said he was going to be coming straight from that one to this one with another EDA. So we'll just have to wait till he shows up here. Okay. Uh, We will begin when he arrives, though. Thanks for your patience. Hey, Simon.
How you doing? I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know you're a busy, popular guy, I imagine, being
Yeah,
being
we
a
were
leadership team lead.
with Kitchener Center, like in Waterloo region, and I left because that was the closing for a 1 minute speech, and I just wrote something in the chat. I say, okay, I'm already 8 minutes
Uh,
late. Sorry, guys. Like, it was nice. It's been going on for since 8 o'clock here in Eastern,
yeah.
so
So
that's
like
like an hour, and it was supposed to finish at 9:30. So
wow. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
here
Was
I
it
am.
was it a multiple candidates meeting or was it
Yeah, all the candidates were there.
oh wow, okay. So it was a debate. Oh.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah, we were considering doing one ourselves and we haven't I was just waiting to hear if there was one planned by the party centrally, but yeah, we might end up doing one regardless, even if you
Yeah,
do one,
but
because
the
other
party
EDA.
should do one. I think. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, it would
yeah.
make sense. It'd be kind of foolish for them
That's
to
what
not,
we
I think.
agree. Like at the last meeting, because there was like some, like some people who just like resigned from the LLC, the committee for the leadership.
Oh,
So
okay.
so they decide to like maybe do, because there was no plan of doing debates at the beginning. So
Hmm.
that's why there's all those debates and all the different like
Hmm.
EDA. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they should do that. I hope they get it
yeah, I
together.
hope they will too. Yeah. So
Okay.
so you're Derek.
I am Derek,
Okay.
and we're live on YouTube here with some folks watching from our riding.
Okay.
And let's mark this as the official start here. I'm just gonna wave my hand. Hopefully this will help me cut the video. And I'll begin by saying that I am right now broadcasting from the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation, and uh, it's a timed answers interview for everybody who's watching on YouTube. If you've watched the other ones, you're familiar with this format. We'll ask a question. I'll give Simon a length of time to answer. Vic's gonna pop up, flash a card, and show him. You won't see this, but show him how much time he's got left, and we are going to start by asking. There's an example that Simon
Okay.
can see, and then when we're done asking some pre-selected questions that we've got as an EDA, we have to ask the same 6 questions to all the candidates. We are going to open up to audience questions. Feel free to drop your questions in while we're asking the pre-selected questions. We will get to the questions in the order that they are asked. So and don't worry about asking a bunch. If there's a whole bunch, I'll just declare a lightning round, and Simon will have a minute to answer each question, no matter how complicated they are. So you'll be put in the hot seat, put through your paces. We'll see what happens. Sometimes it's a lot of questions, sometimes it's not as many. Um, yeah, and in the chat, you will notice that there are 2 other folks with little wrenches beside their names. If they introduce themselves, that's Neil and Vic, and they're just moderating. We haven't had a problem yet, but if you are being a dingbat, you're going to get silenced. And if you are repeatedly being that way, you are going to get booted from the thing. But no one's been mean so far, so this should work out just fine. Um,
Okay.
and having said that, I'm going to click record on the Zoom here just as a backup, just in case something happens to the YouTube recording that's happening. Uh, and that's all the housekeeping. Simon, why don't you introduce yourself? Explain to the lovely folks why you are running to be leader, what brought you to this point in your life.
Yeah, so I'm almost 50 years old. I studied political science almost a quarter of a century ago, and been teaching French as a second language, been doing politics, did some municipal politics. I was on school board for 7 years also, like implicated in my community. For almost 8 years now, I'm a public servant at the Defense Department. I'm in charge of like a bunch of teachers who are teaching French to superior officers. And so I'm like for my kids, for my grandchildren that may one day will come. I think it's very important to get involved in politics and to make sure that we are bringing our economy and our way of living in the right direction. Now, like science is pretty clear that we are not. We are just like exploiting and taking all the resources of the planet, and without thinking about what's going to happen in, I don't know, 50, 30. And now it's like we see what's happening with just here in Ottawa and the region of Ottawa and Gatineau. And we had 3 tornadoes in the last 3 years. Tornadoes, like real tornadoes. They destroy like buildings, house. There's a school they didn't even finish rebuilding from 2018's tornado.
Jesus, I didn't even
So
know that tornadoes could happen out there.
yeah,
That's
me
crazy.
neither. Never happened when I was a kid, and now it's like something that's happening like almost every years. Yeah, so I think we need to realize that we're not on the right path here, and that we need to do something. And the Green Party is, I think, is the right party to do that. So now we have to put everything straight, bring some good leadership, and work together and make sure that we focus on what's important: climate change and the 6 principles of the green, the global greens and the Green Party of Canada.
Couldn't agree more. Right on. Okay, so just waiting on Neil here to give me the first question. There it is. So this is a question about getting the public engaged on climate change. How do we actually get them to do that? So according to a recent Ipsos poll, only 34% of Canadians are concerned about climate change. Are, I think it was very concerned to extremely concerned was the category. Previous candidates took issue with that number, but it's the actually like making this an election issue level of concern. So it's only 34% of Canadians, compared to on average 48% of the population of other countries. And this is despite Canada being, one of the countries that's going to be facing the greatest temperature change on planet Earth. As you know, the Arctic's warming I think it was four. There's a new study came out 4 times as fast as the rest of the world. How do we get people to make this front of mind and central to them? What can we do to bring it back to the front? So 4 minutes for you.
Yes, so I did my research also, and thanks for the question. So I think you're referring to an Ipsos poll done last April. This poll is an outlier. It doesn't reflect what other polling tell us about the concern of Canadians about climate change. So Ipsos did another poll on September 22, 2022 with a very different result. In it, 52% of Canadians say climate change is an emergency and must be stopped at all costs. So that's what I found there. So 52%. So in 2021, a poll in Quebec showed that 69% of Quebecers were highly concerned about climate change. This is an increase from 52 in 2018. So while I would like these figures to be like 80 to 90%, they indicate that most Canadians and Quebecers agree with the core mission of the Green Party to combat climate change. And I think this is promising. How do we get public opinion to a much higher level? Sorry, how do we get the public opinion to a much higher level, and eventually how do we translate this higher public support into votes for the Green Party of Canada? We do so by addressing the psychological barrier to why almost half of Canadians have not bought into why we need to act now and more aggressively on climate change. A key factor that discourages people from dealing with climate change is the fact that it is so often presented as a doom and gloom scenario. So studies show that more than 80% of new articles relating to IPCC assessment reports primarily employed the catastrophe framework. What does this do? So if you overuse fear-inducing imagery, what you get is fear and guilt in people, and this makes people more passive, which counteracts engagement. Ordinary people throw up their hands on issues which seem beyond their control and leave it to governments to come up with magical solutions. A second important factor is dissonance. Dissonance is the inner discomfort when one feels like a hypocrite, when one's knowledge of climate change is not matched by his or her action to stop it. We know that our fossil energy use contribute to global warming, yet we continue to drive, fly, eat beef, or heat with fossil fuel, and dissonance sets in. One strategy to deal with this might be to say, well, I don't personally emit that much carbon. It's the Chinese, the corporation, or somebody else who does that. It's my neighbor with the big SUV or my friend who flies more than I do. So another strategy is to doubt. So we say, that is really not certain that CO2 causes global warming. If I can believe the doubter, then my dissonance goes away. I don't need to feel bad about myself. A third factor is a full-out denial, where we negate, ignore, or otherwise avoid acknowledging the unsettling facts about climate change. Psychological denial is a process that we all have and use. It is a way that we defend ourselves. It is human nature. So four, there is our sense of identity. Each of us has a sense of self that is based on certain values. I'm already on my time's up, so I will just say that all those factors like contribute to make us not see the reality and make us not take the right habit and change and go in the right direction.
You sound like you have read What We Think About When We Try Not to Think About Climate Change by Per Espen Stoknes, by about global warming, it's called. Have you heard of that book?
Yes, I did heard about it.
He does a deep dive into all of those factors and is it's been for a while considered sort of like the gold standard on how to communicate on this. So I really actually
Yeah.
appreciate that you have gone and looked at the research that says what kind of messaging works on this and what we need to do. So yeah, make it about identity, make it near, make it something that we can have an effect on, and not just be, yeah, it's Catherine Hayhoe. So for everybody who's listening, she's climate psychologist, so a climate psychology researcher basically, and she has said this over and over and over again. If you want to get people to act on things that are terrible, you need 2 doses of hope for every dose of despair. And you just made clear, Simon, that we're getting the opposite right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point like we wanted to make. Like, so we need to make that like more engaging and more like, like it's not because it's serious that it can't be fun, it's like it has to be fun also. We're doing something for the future, for the next generations, to make sure that they will live in a nice environment. Like I like to say, like we have Denis Villeneuve here, that's a director of a Quebec director who did like Blade Runner, and
Yeah.
I love his movie, but
Yeah.
I don't want my kids and my grandchild live in
that. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a world like Blade Runner. It's like, no, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
you need to act. That's the future. Like,
It's a cautionary tale, right?
yeah, that's what we want to give them. It's like,
Yeah.
there's like no trees, like hard sounds everywhere. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I think we can do better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next question we got here. This is, in my opinion, the most important question that we can ask. It's been a point of confusion, I think. I've said this in every interview at this point. I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing me saying this, but we need to know, what do you consider the role of party leader to be? Got 5 minutes for this one.
Okay. There has been a long-standing debate within the Green Party of Canada about the leader can and cannot do. Some would like the leader to be no more than a spokesperson for the policy voted on by the general meeting of the members and to provide intellectual input into these policies. Others have pushed for the leader to take a much more active role in defining policy option for areas not already covered by member voted policies. And some who have mostly left the party supported enemy Paul's attempt to suppress policy that the leader did not like or support. So I would like to approach leadership in quite a different way. Allow me to explain. So for the Green Party of Canada to move forward and eventually be able to govern Canada, relational leadership and good judgment must be at the heart of everything we do. This means that the leader must be able to combine extensive experience and analytical skills to produce a comprehensive vision. It is essential that the leader listens, reads deeply, engages members in developing new ideas, and helps to synthesize these ideas into policies that are workable and defensible to Canadians. The leader must be passionate about the 6 principles of the global green movement, and must ensure that these principles guide all GPC decision-making and operations. The leader must always be aware of the importance of all party stakeholders, member, volunteers, staff, in creating the synergy that will advance the interests of the GPC. In practical terms, how would we apply these principles of leadership with the Green Party, with its multiple poles of decision-making, the parliamentary leader, the Federal Council, the Green Party of Canada Fund, and the general meeting of members? As first principle, I believe that all institutional stakeholders must respect the decision of the members to have elected the leader. This means that every effort should be made by the federal councillors and the elected members of parliament to publicly support position taken and articulated by the leader, as long as they conform with member-voted policies and with the GPC Constitution. It also means that the leader must consult with the federal councillors and the elected MPs on all public statements of importance before issuing them, and change them when there is considerable opposition to them. The leader is not an infallible person, and of course he, she, they will make mistakes in initial assessments. The leader's consultation with others must be transparent, respectful, well-intentioned, and without any hint of coercion. The infighting of the past 2 years was a result of exactly the opposite. And we won't make it as a serious political party if we allow unacceptable behavior to continue. For my fellow candidates, I've put forth the idea of co-leadership. Elizabeth and Jonathan have proposed that one takes care of the party's role in parliament and acts as the public face of the party, and the second works to rebuild the party. And then Chad have proposed more of a file-by-file division of responsibility, and don't agree with either approach. I don't agree with either approach. The first strikes me as the celebrity office manager relationship, and the second as diluting the vital relationship between the leader and the larger team of federal councillors, MPs, the GPC fund, and the shadow cabinet. I believe that no exercise responsibility, you need clear lines of responsibility and the ability to make your own decision to defend it to the membership. Diluted decision-making will not move the Green Party forward. Well thought out decision made in broad consultation of all stakeholders will. So we suffered a huge loss in the last election. What are the most important steps to rebuild our membership? That's your next question. So so that was my point, what I prepared for you guys.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. No coercion is I think at a pretty base level of importance for us. And respect amongst all the folks. Yeah, we'll move on to the next one here. So, which you started to answer, but the question is, we suffered a huge loss in the last election. It was the worst performance that we've had in 20 years. It was terrible. we were all heartbroken. We're still heartbroken. Um, what are the most important steps to rebuild the membership, gain public support and trust, and get the public, to stop thinking of us as a mess? What and I'd love to hear because I didn't really I should have put a finer point on this for the other candidates, but I'd love to hear a bit like um decisions about where you think funding should go and stuff too, because really there are some departments in the party that I'm not going to name them, in my opinion, are the backbone of building the party, and they have just not had anything put towards them. I
Hmm.
understand the party's in a mess financially right now, but um, decisions still have to get made, and I feel that a lot of them are the wrong decision to make. So, six
Yeah.
minutes for this one. How do we gain the support? What do we do?
What can I say to what you just add there? Is like every party with like a transition of leadership has like a financial problem. It's like it's everywhere. We saw the liberal after Paul Martin and like the scandal that happened. Everything they fell down like to a couple of MPs and they couldn't find themselves. And the same thing happened like well, okay, the conservatives are very good with the money that's coming in. We have to give them that, but it's always like a transition of leadership. You will see like the fund that will go down. So I would say like to answer the question first, before rebuilding the party, we must be crystal clear about how we want the Green Party to be seen by Canadians. So do we really want the party to be seen as a party of perpetual infighting, which dances around the fringe of society? Or do we want the Green Party to be a political voice of Canada environmental movement? So personally, that's what I want. So the primary reason I'm running for the leadership of the party is that I believe we should do the latter. In my view, an outreach and dialogue with all Canadians concerned about climate change must be ongoing and robust. Recognizing that the centralization of wealth and power contributes to social and economic injustice and environmental destruction, we must develop decentralized and participatory system to encourage individuals to control the decisions that affect their own lives. A society that is not socially and economically just cannot be sustainable. So that's very important. The EDAs must be the backbone of the party. This is not currently the case, and it must change. During the first 180 days of my leadership, I will meet with the 60 most active EDAs in Canada to discuss 14, the concern of their constituents, how to improve relations with the central institution of the GPC, the leadership office, the Federal Council, the GPC fund, and the GPC staff, how to coordinate efforts with neighboring EDAs, and for how to increase membership, especially young in the riding. This objective will be repeated after the first 180 days, 5 more times over the next 2.5 years until all 338 constituencies are supported. The erosion of trust. So that's the answer of my first part of answer of like that question. Yeah. So the other part I wanted to bring was like the erosion of trust between the Federal Council and the leader will inevitably lead to a much greater loss of trust through the party. I will address this issue through group and one-on-one team building activity. I plan to bring all the federal advisors together for a 2-day face-to-face retreat within the first 2 months of my terms. This retreat will allow for a safe hearing of past grievances, identification of obstacles to greater cohesion, sharing of views on what is needed and achievable over the next 2 years at the organizational level, and building consensus around a common vision for revitalizing and developing the party. The GPC is now operating with the goodwill and dedication of a small army of volunteers. During the first 2 months of my term, I will meet individually, in person, and or virtually with each national level volunteer who has contributed to the GPC revitalization effort over the past year. Toward the end of the first 6 months of my term, I will convene a virtual retreat a federal advisor and volunteer with the goal of building consensus on how to create an organizational culture that minimizes conflict while respecting diversities of opinion. So, when the leader and the institutional structure of the party and the parliamentary caucus are not aligned in their goals and understanding of responsibilities, the GPC is prone to recurring crisis. Can no longer afford who's boss conflicts. The role of the leader as the chief spokesperson for the party must not be seen as simply expressing party policy to Canadians. It must also be understood that the leader, with the support of the federal council is responsible for guiding and framing the parliamentary objective of the caucus. It distresses me to hear repeatedly the insistence that our Green MPs are not whipped, and to even hear them suggest that they might sit as independent MPs. In the first month of my mandate, I will meet 3 times with our MPs individually and once as a group. The purpose of this meeting will be 1, to highlight past tension and dysfunction related to the relationship and interaction between the caucus and the leader. 2, to brainstorm on how to put in place strong working guidelines to avoid future tension and increase cohesion. And 3, to reach consensus on the development of a proposed way forward for review, consideration, and approval by federal council. I don't expect this discussion with the caucus to be all milk and honey. And yes, they will require adhering to more party discipline. However, without a cohesive collaborative relationship between the leader and the caucus, conflicts will inevitably reemerge, and this will prevent member vote policy from being voiced in parliament and publicly by our MPs to Canadians. So that is my plan.
Okay. Gotcha. Getting everybody on the same page. Yeah,
I think it's very important, huh? It's like, we need to talk, you need to discuss, we need to find solution, we need to understand each other, and then after we go forward and make sure we talk about the right thing, like climate change and like the 6 principles. Social justice is so important right now. There's so many things that needs to be done. We're still measuring like our wealth with the gross domestic products. Like, what is that?
Yeah. It's funny. I think every single candidate so far has mentioned that. I've always said it's like a car crash is good for the GDP. It's like, why are we using that to measure well-being? That's crazy.
That's like
the wealth of a country.
The end. Yeah, it's like, oh, we're doing well, or gross domestic. Like it's all growing. It's like, oh yeah, we're just like bigger cancer. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I appreciate that framing too. We got a short one here, just about whether you'd be willing to relocate. So as you know, Paul Manley got in because that's not the only reason, obviously, but like, we ran in a by-election. It is our best chance to get more people elected, because like it or not, the whole strategic vote argument is sticky with people. So if a by-election were to be called away from your home riding, would you be willing to relocate there if we had a chance of winning? Unless it's like an all blue forever kind of place. And follow-up question to that, would you be willing to relocate in a general election to a riding that is more winnable than yours? Because we can't kid ourselves and say that every riding is winnable, right?
Yeah, we can't compare. Like, we did like good in 2019 here. We were at 7%, but it's not comparable to Nanaimo. And yes, I would be able to move anywhere. If like fundamentally like decide not to run again in Nanaimo, I will, and you guys want to vote me in, I will go to Nanaimo. I will go wherever I need to go to make the Green Party go forward, for sure. And because my partner is also from Vancouver Island, so I love that place also, but I could go anywhere in Canada.
I just got a funny message. I didn't realize this. Vic just told me. I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Apparently, GDP was introduced after World War II as a temporary measure. Have you heard this before?
No,
No, it was
temporary measure.
supposed to be temporary, apparently.
Oh, yeah. And we're still having, yeah, and now we're basing everything on that. And it was a temporary measure.
That's crazy. Just
Yeah.
how, that's because it's the way it's always been. A lot of thinking like that.
Yeah.
So, next question we got is about inflation and about cost of living. It is, I would say, having gone and door knocked for Paul Manley in his municipal campaign here, which everybody watching should join me. We definitely need your help, and we're having a sine wave on Wednesday on the Comox Bridge at 4:30 downtown, the Pearson Bridge. People won't stop mentioning cost of living, cost of housing. It seems to be the most important thing for everybody. So inflation's super high, and we're still having issues with a lot of basic government services not operating well. What do you
Mhm.
see as the best means to tackle this issue? I know we've got a lot of policy on this, but how would you speak about it?
Yeah. So there are two facets to my response. Okay, first, in the short term, we must assist Canadians, especially the most vulnerable Canadian, with their most important everyday expenses. The immediate expenses are for most people rent, food, transportation. It is not buying a new house, although we also need to address some affordability. So I'm in favor of the federal government working with the provincials to impose a 2-year rent freeze to cool down the inflammatory cost of living. At the same time, landlords need to be encouraged to renovate their rental units to reduce reliance on fossil fuel. I will bring about a very generous subsidy to equip as many rental units with efficient heat pumps as soon as possible. Those are all ideas, okay? We did brainstorm and said, oh, those are like good ideas. So uh, this will have the impact of reducing heating costs for the tenants and protecting tenants against future heat domes. I will provide for a program of eviction prevention, assistant to provide tenants facing eviction with immediate interest-free loans to pay their rent to avoid eviction. So the cost of food is of immediate concern, and much of this relates to the supply chain and cost of transportation. While the long-run solution is to increase the local supply of food versus importing from the United States, the immediate solution must be to reduce or eliminate taxes on basic food products, including those related to their transportations from farm to consumer. More immediately, we should be investing heavily in community-run food centers and enabling them to source food in a more cost-effective way, including government-funded bulk purchases of basic foods for distribution by them. Food wastage is also a huge problem, and addressing it adequately will alleviate food insecurity. Working with the provincial government, legislation could be brought into oblige supermarket to donate soon to expire but still safe food products to local food center instead of destroying this valuable food. Painful 20th century policy prescription to cut inflation by squeezing the life out of the economy through increasing interest rate and reducing government support are no answer to our 21st century problems. They will only make our problems worse. In the long run, inflation and food security can only be addressed by instituting broad-reaching reforms that move Canada away from the impact of the price volatility of fossil fuel on costs of basic goods, especially food, to a green economy based on renewable energy and sustainable agriculture practices. So that's my answer regarding the inflation and the situation that we are living right now. I think it's uh, it's a complex situation with the COVID that just arrived and in part created that. But on the other hand, when we see those big corp fossil fuel producer who's still making billions in
Mm.
profit, you're like, there's something that doesn't work here. Everybody's struggling, but those guys are making billions and even more than before. That's there's maybe, I don't know, the math regarding that, but that represents maybe like 1-2% of the inflation.
Mm.
And then if like you look at those big corp around who are like making more money when everybody's struggling,
Yeah.
that's a problem. And that's
Yeah,
needs to be addressed.
it's unjust. It's
Yeah.
not it's not okay, man. Really. It's
No,
really
people
it's really
are having less asset, less money in their pocket. But on the other hand, you have those big corporations who just make more profit. And the government doesn't do anything. So, oh, you can't do anything. You have to do something. You have to frame that. You have to address that. You have to, make them realize that like if they don't act properly, but there will be something, and
Mm.
they will think twice before like just raising the price, like because they can do it,
Mm.
so they
Yeah,
can
I
take their bonus at the end of the year or like more stock option and make more money. And it's like, yeah.
it's kind of just a game for people with that amount of money is how I understand it.
Corporate
But
greed needs to be addressed, like,
yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. You saw
should
like the
be taxed out of existence.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I saw you saw on your first note has been talking a lot about this windfall tax. I'm sure you've seen, but um, it's a thing that's happened, and there's some countries around the world that are actually starting to implement it or in the process of getting the pieces together to put forward the correct policy to implement it. A lot of European countries she was mentioning that I
yeah,
saw, but a lot of countries around the world because this is a worldwide problem with the windfall, these huge profits that these companies have been getting despite, everybody else's lives getting harder. And it
yeah,
just makes sense, man. It's if you want to reduce inflation, you got to reduce the amount of money that's in the economy. And one way to do that is to take it away from those companies that have just got billions because they were there in the first place. It's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But also like if you put the gas to a normal price, then you decrease the inflation, like for sure. We're gonna see the effect. Like now it went down like 50% in the last month. So we'll see the effect of that, and it will be important because gas is a very
Mm,
important like expense in the budget.
mm.
So it's like until we get into a green economy, that's the paradox we are talking
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we
totally.
need to move forward. We need to go like more with the hydroelectricities. Like
Mm,
there's no like magical solution, okay?
mm,
But solar panel, like wind force, like we need to use the alternative like source of energy for sure. And that's where we need to go. But right now, like the lobbying and those big corps, they're just like living in their bubble and they don't want to move forward. They're like, oh, they have their nice like their nice cottage like in the middle of the forest, and they don't live what the people are living in the city or
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
in like in the rural place where it's like they're living in a bubble and they're not
yeah.
connected to what's really going on. So I
Mm,
think it's in politics that we need to remind them that they
mm.
also part of a social like community.
Yeah, there's more people than them.
Yeah,
I appreciate the mention about volatility too. It's really that's a framing that we don't hear or use often enough, I think, is that a lot of this is because we're dependent on a fuel that we're getting from other places that's subject to availability. It's like the sun's going to be there for another couple billion years. I think we should probably get more from that. But we should move on to the next one here. It's our last pre-selected question from our EDA here. So it's a simple question. You got 4 minutes to answer it. Do you believe it is moral to use housing as an investment?
yeah, good question. So I thought about that, and so I believe in the principle that housing is a human right.
Mm,
So I also recognize that there are many facets to operationalizing this principle in our current capitalist economy. But what we can do is introduce legislation to limit the role of corporations, to the building of new family homes and initial home sales, and not the buying and selling of existing family homes. So for rental unit, I do not see how we can, in the current capitalism economy, get around the corporate buying and reselling of apartment buildings, as outlawing this will create havoc in the rental market. However, I strongly advocate that the federal and provincial government should step up a program of building mixed income apartment units to apply downward pressure on the rental market. Leaving the rental market entirely to private hands is a huge mistake. I have no problem with individual buying a second home and renting it out for investment income, or an individual investing in the purchase of a primary residence with the hope that the price will increase when they retire and decide to downsize. So that's my position, like right now, like, and I think that's how I think we could really change the reality that we're having right now. That's like not good, and I think the government need to step up, like I said, and we need to build some affordable housing for people and to create competition. It's never good to leave everything to one side or the other. You can't be just the government or just the private sector. It's like you bring both, and you have a comparison that you're able to create some competition that will allow to keep the price down, and know if like also they're too greedy on the other side. Because there was an example of that, like in the municipality, they stopped using the blue collar because it was too expensive, and then they started using private company. But then after a couple of years, they're like, it's getting pretty expensive. So they say to their blue collar, could you just do the tender offer and like bring your price? And then the blue collar was like, it was less expensive. So the employee of the municipality were less expensive finally, because the private sector just like collude and like make the price go up like crazy. So we need always those tools to measure and make sure like we're going in the right direction. Sometimes union are very good, huh? Don't take me wrong. I'm unionized, and I'm even part of my union. But it's a tool to make sure that everything is balanced and that we respect the workers. It's not a tool to just bring the power into the union and then create infighting with the patron, the owner side of the patron or the municipality. It's really a tool to balance, and it's always a question of balance. Yeah. So yeah, that's my my answer to the housing.
Great. Okay. Yeah, balance is always important. I read there's this book about the history of money, talks about how if you don't have private to keep the public sector accountable, then things get out of control, and vice versa. So it's got to be a push and pull between them. So nobody's holding all of the cards, I guess. But
it's always the people, huh? It's the people that
yeah. we're all human beings, and if you get enough power concentrated in any one place, you're gonna find a bunch of gross people trying to take that power just because they want that power,
and they will use it for what they think need to be done, like go on Mars, or
send a car out into space, or reinvent trains, I guess, reinvent the metro and call it something else.
But go on Mars, I think it's like, okay, we can't even manage the planet Earth properly. There's so much to do here. So many things to do.
Yeah, I think there are arguments for and against it, but I mean, if we're going to be dumping a bunch of money into stuff like that, the first and foremost thing is,
no, but let's manage
a lot better
properly.
Good down here,
I'm not saying not to go eventually, maybe, but managing things properly here. It's like,
it's a mess. It's a mess. We're in really bad shape, It's
and the planet is just like you're shaking everything, to say, it's like, let's make life harder for them, and I'll find planets is looking for a balance. I'm French, huh? I put her, him on the
no.
My partner tell me that all the time. It's okay.
So we got a few audience questions here.
Let's go.
And we don't have a lot of time left here, actually. We started late, so I'm gonna end us 10 minutes late here. So we've got about 10 minutes to get through the questions here, roughly 10 minutes.
Okay.
Um, the somebody was asking for clarification here. So when I asked you the question about what the role of the party leader was,
Yeah.
she said, lost me in the overwhelm of words. So are you saying that a GPC leader elected by whomever of membership votes then has greater say slash sway slash power than all other entities of the party?
No, he will be a spokesperson of the policy of that the members will have voted, and that's very important. He doesn't have more power. He's just a public figure. But on the other hand, he will also make the link between the caucus and the party and make sure things are going in the same way and we're all working together. But at the end, it's always to bring up front and to communicate the policy that the member have voted, and I will bring my own ideas to the member, to the council, to the general council, and it's like, but at the end it's always to go forward with the policies of the party voted
Right.
by the members.
So I think the piece where she got confused, what you're talking about was about meeting with the caucus and making sure that they're all working together
Yeah.
and not having these public disagreements and going to the media over and over again with internal politics and shit. So that makes sense to me. Okay.
Yeah, it was in line with what we saw lately, and make sure we all work together. But it's like it's not more important. I see a leader. I see life more like like oh, I only have the word in French in my mind, but like those bernache or like a goose that all fly together. It's not the same one that's in front all the time, and they just change place. So now the leader has the position. That doesn't mean like he's always like the leader. It doesn't work like that. It's a position. We have structure. We respect that, and then we organize things. But in life is organic, and it's like it's in movement. So sometimes it's like somebody take the leads and another one, but all that needs to be done in respect and with good communication, and know we're going in a direction that we all understand, and and that's what I want to bring. It's like not like a dictatorship, like at all.
Just cohesion. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So hey Neil, how many questions do we have? Sorry. I just want to make sure that we've got enough time here for your closing remarks as we're okay. All right. So I'll give you this is a bit of a long subject. I'm sure you've heard this riddle before. If a pond has a lily pad in it, and it's the number of lily pads in a pond is doubling every single day, and the pond is full on the 30th day, on what day is the pond half full?
Okay. So there's could you repeat it? So there's lily pad in the pond.
It's a math question, and
I
it's
see that.
really, I just want to preempt what it's my friend Jim who's asked this, but I want to preempt this by bringing us into the statistical frame of mind here. So there's a pond, it's got lily pads in it. The number of lily pads in the pond doubles in size every single day. On the 30th day, the pond is completely full. There's no more room for any more lily pads. If it's completely full on the 30th day, on what day is it half full, considering that the population of lily pads doubles every single day?
On the 29th.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the reason I mentioned that is because this question sort of revolves around that, and it's talking about how we are on the 30th day. So I'll just read the text that he wrote here. In 1970, humanity surpassed carrying capacity, the absolute maximum size and impact humanity could have without drawing down the rest of life. I guess taking down the rest of life, maybe he meant. Since then, the population has doubled since 1970, and consumption has quadrupled, such that we have lost 68% of all life. That was the 2020 Living Planet report. I'm not sure if you saw that or not. That's like total numbers of wild animals. The exponential scale of the growth of the human enterprise indicates that there's not enough living planet left to withstand the next 28-year doubling of human impact. So if you didn't know, our population's on about a 28-year cycle of doubling. Are you willing to publicly confront human overshoot and speak frankly about the need for a reduction in living standards, energy availability, and population, the dire consequences if we do not, and the dire consequences of doing so? I'm not sure what the flip sides are there. Are you willing to appeal to sacrifice and responsibility rather than enervating hope that our lives can remain the same? So it kind of flies a little bit in the face of what you and I were discussing earlier about
Yeah.
good psychology on messaging on this, but it is a hard reality. So
It
how would you
is.
speak about this?
It is a hard reality, and on my website, I don't know if you eventually want to put it on the chat, or is there a chat?
Yeah. No, we will for sure. Tell me.
Yeah, okay. So I talk a bit about that, like about the growth of the population and my position and all that. Like uh, Canada doubled its population since the 60s. And if you look at Norway, they increased their population by 15%. And it's like that's a choice. It's a choice we're making. Is it really what we want? I'm not sure we're going in the right direction, saying we need to grow and double the population and like just grow. We're in the same mentality as the GDP there. Like it's like, oh, our GDP is growing, everything's good. It's like it's the same thing. Like we need to grow as a population, and there's some. So like it's a delicate topics, immigration. I'm for getting in refugee and also some immigration, but I think we need to think about all that, like the numbers and how much what's the growing that we want for the decades and years that are coming because it is a question that's very important, and we need to face it. And it's like some country are growing very fast, so we saw that the solution for that is like education. Like we see the country where there's a lot of education, like the growing stop by itself, because like educated countries, like people will have like one or two kids, and sometimes it's not enough to just like maintain the growth of the country. So I think like we need to to share with the world also, like, and not in a paternalistic way, but like make sure countries develop themselves, and that's more foreign policy or like a development, like a foreign development. But that's very important. I think Canada need to invest more in foreign development to help people, to help countries to develop their education system and their sustainability, the justice system, the rule of law that's really working, and make sure that we all understand the reality in this, some basic stuff in a certain way. We all get those parts. Like, you can't just grow forever thinking there won't be any consequences to that. It's like it's like just running and saying I will be able to pass through the wall. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you can't argue with physics.
Yeah, it's basic science, huh?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we got two questions left here. We got 4 minutes, so we'll do 2 minutes for each question. They're both about agriculture. The first one
Okay.
is sort of a general question. What is your stance on industrialized agriculture or industrial agriculture, he wrote?
I grew up in the country. I lived with industrial agriculture. Right now, I'm vegetarian. I don't eat red meat, and never no meat. Like sometime I will eat some cheese and use milk, but I try to get that out also of my regime. I think industrial agriculture is inhuman, and like we don't respect animal in the industrial agriculture, and we need to respect animals. Like there's a way to interact with them, and we can't like just use them. And like, let's say take a pork, like in those big industrial pork factory and house, they don't even see the sun. Like they give and they pass from the birth to the slaughterhouse, and they don't even see the sun. It's like doesn't make any sense. And now we have a pork in like 8 to 9 months that's ready to be killed. So industrial agriculture need to be rethink. I think we need to re-see everything that we do. That's my point of view. It's like I'm not against all like raising like uh, beef or all that. There's specific place on the planet where that's where it belongs, and that's where they can grow. And like there's people who are doing great farming with crops, and I think that but the lack of respect for the animal is a problem. And it's also like if we take that's just one facet of industrial agriculture. We didn't even talk about like all those forests that we're cutting to grow some corns, or to at the end feed the animals. So I think there's a lot of things that has to be rethink regarding industrial agriculture for sure. But we need to help farmers to transit to something else. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you've actually kind of already answered the next question here, because this next one's actually focused on animal agriculture. So you can take some of this time to talk about the other aspects of industrialized agriculture that aren't animal agriculture if you want in your answer to this one. But animal agriculture is the worst or second worst contributor to every major environmental problem on Earth.
Mhm.
And currently, the GPC doesn't actually have a clear policy platform on this subject. So, would you be willing, in that absence, to speak plainly about just how, I mean, in my opinion, it's the worst thing that we've ever done environmentally, period, and are continuing to do. It just the scale of it doesn't even, nothing else really compares. So, are you willing to speak about plainly about how colossal of a mistake this is that we're making?
Yeah, we need, like I said, we need to rethink all that. We need to see what we're doing. Like the use of pesticide, like all those chemical we're using just to grow all kind of like cereals, like all that need to be rethink. It's like but it's pretty like uh everywhere. Everything is based on those, so it's like something that's huge to move and to transform. But we need to start somewhere, and like it's important to talk about it, and it's important to act also. And I think the Green Party is the party that should act on that, and like to make make the country think about that. And like like you have to go forward. And agriculture is like is one of the problem, like you were saying, like of uh, like environmental problem that are very important. It's like we're cutting forests to turn the dirt, to put some like cereals, to feed the animals, to get some flesh. There's something that doesn't make any sense in all that, like, and I think it's right there, but we're still doing it. So it's a very strong lobbying. There's habit also. We've been like eating meats like for like centuries, and one time it was the thing to do to survive. But now we're somewhere else, and we're discovering with the science that's not the best way to go for the future, and that's not the behavior we should keep developing. We should even like change all that and go in another direction. So I think the Green Party is the party to, yes, to fight for that, and to make sure that we're transforming all that.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Simon. That's all the questions we have, and
That
we're
was
just
great.
at time for closing remarks for you. So, you got about 5 minutes here. Just tell everyone any last words you got for the viewers, and I'm a Ladysmith here, and just people who will watch the video in the future. These have been getting shared around to a bunch of different EDAs actually. And let us know how to reach you, your website and stuff. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So my website, www.simonj, like George Messier.ca. So you'll find all my different ideas. It's like ideas,
Sorry,
point
is
of
that
view.
.ca?
Yeah, that's it.
SimonGMessier.ca?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Put it in the chat for everyone to check out there on YouTube.
Yeah, I could put it. Oh, you put
No,
it?
I did it. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
perfect.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, so I think like I'm running because I think I could like help the Green Party to get to the next level. And we need more MPs. You need to be able to change policy in Canada, make things go in the right direction, and tackle climate change. The Green Party is the party of the environment and the climate change, and we need to make sure that we will work together and that we will like organize things in a way that the message will pass and get to the population because they're ready. The people knows people know that there's problem. There's climate like disaster everywhere. Like we got Fiona in on the East Coast, like last week. We like everything that happened in BC, like the fires, and it's like in us the tornado. So everything is there. Now we need to show that we're organized, that we're serious, and that we know what we're doing, and that like our things are, our house in an order, and we're ready to go there and to change things. And that's is, that's to us to show that. And I think I will be able to do that. I'm a team player. I've been playing sport all my life, and I want to go and make the party grow and make everybody play together and go in a similar direction. Yeah. So
Right
nice. So
on.
thank you for having me. And it was a pleasure. And if everybody who's listening wants to write to me, they can write to me. There's my email address also, like on the website. Don't hesitate. Write to me, whatever question I answering everybody.
Right on. Well, great. Thanks so much for coming on, Simon. Or Simon, sorry, I'm pronouncing your name like an
No,
Anglophone here.
I don't. Simon, Simon, it's the same thing for me.
Uh, this was the last of our interviews of the leadership candidates. I hope that you found them informative. We are debating whether or not to host our own debate. Debating a debate. I found out that the Central Party is actually putting their own on in English and French, and that is going to be live streamed. So you'll be receiving an email from the Green Party Canada central email list about when that's happening, and we may just end up phoning you to remind you about that, but we might do our own. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks so much for closing us off, Simon or Simon. It was great, and yeah, don't forget to vote, everybody.
Yeah,
When is it?
yeah.
October 14th? Nope,
November
that's
19th.
municipal. October 15th is municipal. It's November when?
November 19th.
November
And
19th.
yeah, and if people are not members still, they have until the 14th of October to become members if they want to be able to vote on the November 19th. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have a municipal election
Yeah,
yeah.
we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul
Yeah.
Manley is running for city council, so it's exciting times.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Good luck to Paul. Go vote for Paul.
Don't
Yeah.
forget to vote for Paul and get your
Yeah.
Green Party membership.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Simon, if you want to stay on and chat afterward, I'm going to end the YouTube live here. So thanks everybody.